So welcome back to another channel update, actually, not just to, well, it does have something to do with Reforged as well. So technically speaking, there will be Reforged content of a sort in this video, but there will also be talking, well, I will also be talking about a few other things in addition to that. And the last channel update I had was mentioning things like burnout and sort of like a loose amalgamation of some of my future plans for the channel, and most of those have not really come to fruition. I have sort of gotten over the issue of burnout, so to speak, and obviously now the content is flowing at a regular pace once more, sort of one video every 2 days and such, and so that's not really too much of a concern for me anymore. I was kind of worried that with the sort of restarting of the university year that I would struggle a little bit more to get content out, and that hasn't turned out to be the case. The only problem that I've sort of run into really is the fact that I haven't really had any time to play the game myself for the past couple of months, really, which is a bit of a shame. I could play a little bit more, but that would also eat into the time that I spend on actually making videos at the weekends, and so that would mean that the number of videos overall would actually drop off pretty dramatically. It might even go down to just 1 a week, 2 a week at the most if I were to do that, which, to be honest, is not really worth it in the larger scheme of things. I feel as though just sort of making the videos as they come to me is sort of the better choice, both for the health of the mod overall, because I like to think that I help out a little bit in my own way just to sort of publicise the mod just a little bit. And to be honest with you, I feel as though showing off other people's replays is also maybe a little bit more worthwhile, because very often, you know, it's very rare that people will send me like a howler of a replay. Like, oftentimes they're good replays because they're proud of them. They send them to me because they want them to be shown. Sometimes it does turn out that it's because they were quite clearly the best player in the lobby, but for the most part the battles are still all very, very entertaining, so there's always a sort of certain guarantee of quality with the replays that I get, and I feel as though showing them off does them a service as well as the mod as a whole. So that's really the first point here, the fact that, you know, I would like to play the game a little bit more and sort of put myself in my own content a little bit more, because I do know that that is somewhat of an important aspect. You know, I need to sort of stay on top of things, as it were, and while I can sort of speak with a certain degree of knowledge about the mechanics of sort of Medieval 2 as a whole, overall, you know, my own skill with the game has certainly dropped off just because of the fact that I haven't actually been able to play it. So while I can certainly sit here and criticise, sort of being the armchair general, criticising everyone's tactics, which people do want me to do for the most part, ultimately I probably wouldn't be able to do much better in that situation either, sort of at the time and on the fly. So hopefully around the time of the next break that I get from university, which sort of is about a month over sort of starting at Christmas time, which obviously, you know, content over Christmas time probably just be sort of pre-recorded to an extent, but into the earlier part of January, hopefully I will be able to put myself in my own content a little bit more. So that is sort of the first point of this video. But there is also the fact that I feel as though I need a little bit more variety in my content, because I do feel as though there's a bit of stagnation going on, even though I have sort of eased off a little bit, because there was a time when I was going to do 2 videos every 3 days, and I feel as though that would have been far, far too much, to be honest with you. I feel as though there is a real danger of oversaturating things with regards to Reforged content, and I feel as though, you know, I'm probably mostly to blame for that, to be honest with you, with how regular I upload stuff. But I feel as though I need something else in terms of variety. Now, the first thought is obviously adding another game to the mix, which I did talk about actually in my last channel update as well. And I haven't really found anything that would be suitable, I don't think, because ultimately I have sort of built a channel based on a sub-mod of a mod of a game from 2006, and so it's a very specific thing that I've sort of built up from, and so finding something else to sort of supplement that is a little bit more tricky than someone who's just sort of shitting out Fortnite videos, for example. Now, I did think about doing some multiplayer for Crusader Kings 2's Holy Fury DLC, which just came out. Now, that's a little bit... I'm not really sure how to approach that, to be honest with you, because CK2 is kind of difficult to make. It's a very slow-burning game, and obviously it's a little bit difficult to sort of present it in a way that's entertaining and sort of informative at the same time. It's a possibility still, but I would also say that it's probably a little bit unlikely. I'll probably still play some CK2 multiplayer with a friend of mine, but I'm not sure whether that will ever see the light of day. Obviously Holy Fury, I think, is actually the last DLC that they planned for Crusader Kings 2 as well, I mean, the game's been around for quite some time at this point, getting sort of regular DLCs and content updates as well. But yeah, probably not. If there is enough of a want for it, then I will do so. But I'm still sort of, I'd have to sort of figure out how that would work in a better fashion to how I tried before, because I did release a couple of CK2 multiplayer videos, but they were a little bit dry, I feel like they were a bit too long with not enough sort of content in them. So I feel as though maybe a little bit more editing would be required to make that work, and if I was going to do that, I would need to know that it would be worth it in terms of people actually wanting to see it. And it's a shame really, because, you know, obviously Total War is the primary series which I've put out, which people have watched, and it's a bit of a shame that sort of my channel I sort of started my channel and it started to grow just after Warhammer 2 came out, so I kind of missed the boat on that one. And it's a bit of a shame, because I do like Warhammer 2 as a game, but I haven't really been able to post all that much on it. I know that people's opinions on the Warhammer Total Wars in general, with their sort of over-the-top nature with magic and monsters and all sorts of things, is a little bit split. I personally really like the Warhammer games. I feel as though, certainly more so than the more recent historical titles that Total War put out, I think Creative Assembly have done a much better job with the two Warhammer games. Obviously there's quite a lot of expensive DLC that goes along with it, but that's kind of par for the course with Sega and CA with most of their more modern titles, so that really can't be helped. But yeah, I mean, Warhammer 2, I feel as though, you know, that ship has already sailed. Most people that make content on that have already been making it for quite some time and can speak with much more knowledge on the game than I can. So I feel as though there's probably not much point in making it that either. So with all of that said, I feel as though the next game that I can sort of branch off into will probably be Three Kingdoms, and Three Kingdoms I think comes out in February. Three Kingdoms, honestly, from what I've seen, looks fairly promising to my eyes. I know there's some people that feel as though it's going to flop. I'm not really sure why they see that per se. I mean, it's certainly, you know, they're certainly saying all the right things. More recently, they released a little video that details the diplomacy system, which looks better than it has done in most Total Wars. I mean, I've always found the diplomacy in Total War games to be not good, like not good at all. I mean, mostly it just seems like the AI is there to try and it feels very formulaic for the most part. Like, you can either game the system and make it work for you, or it's just an obstacle, which, you know, the AI always refuses to work with you in a realistic fashion. But I feel as though Three Kingdoms, from the looks of things, they've made things a little bit better. We'll see how well that actually plays out, but at the very least it looks like they've made some improvements at the very least. And also, I'm just interested in the Three Kingdoms era in general. I feel as though it's a fertile ground for Creative Assembly to make a Total War game in. I like the character-driven aspects. They're bringing over some stuff from Warhammer into a historical title, which I feel as though has potential. I feel as though the Three Kingdoms in general, with all of the sort of the famous generals and strategists and warriors, all of that sort of thing, works really well. I know that some people are a little bit iffy on hero units, but I mean, to be honest with you, there is two modes. I mean, I do feel as though, honestly, the classic mode will be a little bit tacked on. I feel as though the way the game will be intended to be played will be with the hero units enabled. But we'll see. I mean, personally, I like the idea of the hero units. I mean, it seems to fit Three Kingdoms very, very well. So I'm actually looking forward to Three Kingdoms. I hope that it'll do well. I hope that it's not as awful as something like Rome 2 was on release. I hope that we'll be getting a game much closer to the quality that Shogun 2 was, hopefully. We'll see, and obviously when that comes out I'll be making videos on that and hopefully sort of branching out a little bit, because I do feel as though that the channel does need to evolve a little bit, because I feel as though I have gotten stuck in my ways a little bit with regards to the content that I'm putting out, and there is a danger of just stagnating and then everything fizzling out, which would be a bit of a shame. I mean, I certainly don't intend really for this to be anything more than it currently is, but I would rather it sort of carry on in a healthy fashion for at least a little while longer. As it is, though, I do feel a little bit concerned that maybe everything is stagnating, and I would be, of course, willing to hear feedback on these thoughts, obviously down in the comments below, if anyone has any feedback to offer in that regard. With regards to what I can do now, though, to try and give a bit more variety to the content, I was thinking about doing something else with regards to Reforged rather than just the battle replays. Now, the battle replays obviously will still be the cornerstone of the channel, but I've had a lot of people asking for sort of top 10s again, and also a few inquiries about the quality versus quantity series that I was doing before. So I feel as though one of the things that I can do will be to sort of merge the two concepts into something that I can do, because as I've said, top 10's a little bit difficult to do at the moment, mainly because Reforged is an ever shifting thing, and I feel as though just putting out a top 10 list with every patch doesn't really help anyone, because it just sort of makes things very confusing when there's loads of lists made by the same person for the same mod, for the same units even, so that's why I'm holding off on them and I'm reluctant to do them. Quality versus quantity as well was more of a stopgap series that I was doing, and you know, the videos in general didn't last very long, but I feel as though what I could do is do top 5s or top 10s of quality versus quantity videos. So essentially this would be me running tests on my own time, which wouldn't take too long, to be honest with you. I would sort of do a few for each unit and then run an average. This is all sort of the boring stuff that you don't see, so to speak. And then I would just make a list. So for example, if we're talking about the sort of the multiple HP two-handed swordsman going up against sort of several units of orc fodder, going into them one by one. After all those tests had been done, I would obviously make a video, and then we would say, well, Temple Executioners were number 1, Haven Guard number 2, you know, do 9 captains in there somewhere, that sort of thing, and sort of explaining how well they did, sort of the potential reasons for why they did well, and all of that sort of thing. So top 5 quality versus quantity would certainly be an option, and considering the amount of unit types there are, that series could possibly last for a little while, maybe a month or two. And that would certainly burn some time before Three Kingdoms came out, and then could start some of that, and maybe release that in tandem with the Reforged replays as they continue. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I feel as though, you know, a little bit worried about stagnating is really the ultimate summary of this channel update, and I feel as though injecting variety is kind of a necessity at this point, and I would be also willing to hear feedback on this. If anyone has any ideas on this, then I would be very willing to listen to them. Obviously time is a factor here. One of the reasons why CK2 multiplayer probably won't be happening is the amount of editing time that will be required to make that entertaining and watchable. Probably a little bit prohibitive to the amount of time that I actually have at the moment. So yeah, I mean, feel free to leave your feedback in the comments of what you believe would be the best way forwards. And yeah, next video after this one will probably be a large-scale siege that I got given. We shall see though. I mean, it's all a bit up in the air at the minute. I've got a decent chunk of replays that I can work my way through at this point, so we'll see. I'll pick the one that is most appropriate for the given day, I think. So yeah, I hope you found this somewhat informative with sort of what my thought process is at the moment with regards to the channel, and I hope you will join me for whatever is next.